I stared at the legal documents spread across the mahogany table, my hands trembling as I read the words that made my stomach plummet to the floor. My own parents were suing me for stealing my brother's rightful inheritance and demanding half of everything I had worked to build. 6 years earlier, I was an 18-year-old drowning in student debt with a family that constantly reminded me I would never amount to anything meaningful. Now I owned a thriving digital marketing agency and a gorgeous house I had purchased entirely with cash from my earnings. But instead of celebrating the success I had fought so hard to achieve, I found myself battling the very people who should have been my biggest supporters from day one. My name is Mindy, and looking back to when I was 18 years old, I can barely recognize the scared girl who graduated high school, carrying $23,000 in crushing student loan debt. Those loans came from dual enrollment college courses I had taken during my junior and senior years, desperately trying to get ahead academically, while my family struggled financially in our small suburban Pennsylvania town. My father, Gerald, spent his days working construction jobs that left his hands permanently stained with dirt and calluses, while my mother, Patricia, cleaned houses for wealthy families on the other side of town. They worked incredibly hard, but money was always tight, and every conversation seemed to revolve around bills, debt, and worry about our financial future. My younger brother Tyler, who was 16 at the time, occupied a completely different position in our family hierarchy. He was the golden child, the star quarterback, who carried our high school team to regional championships and had college scouts calling our house weekly. Everyone in town knew Tyler's name, and our parents glowed with pride whenever anyone mentioned his athletic achievements or his bright future ahead. The contrast between how they treated Tyler and how they treated me was painfully obvious in every family interaction. During dinner conversations, they would spend 30 minutes discussing Tyler's latest football accomplishments, scholarship opportunities, and the amazing colleges that were recruiting him. When the conversation turned to me, their enthusiasm deflated like a punctured balloon. "Tyler's really going places," my father would say with genuine excitement lighting up his weathered face. "Full ride scholarships to Division I schools, maybe even a shot at the NFL someday." Then he would look at me with disappointment clouding his expression. "You, on the other hand, are just accumulating more debt with those college courses. We can't afford to keep paying for your education when Tyler needs our support for his real future." My mother would nod in agreement, her voice taking on a worried tone. "I just don't understand why you're putting so much pressure on yourself with all these classes. Tyler has natural talent that will take care of his future. You're just creating more financial stress for this family." Those words cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. I felt like an unwanted burden, a financial mistake that was draining resources away from their precious son's bright prospects. But I refused to give up on myself even when my own family had written me off. I started researching ways to make money from home spending hours on my outdated laptop, exploring different business opportunities. That's when I discovered social media marketing and realized that local businesses in our area were completely ignoring the power of digital advertising. My bedroom became my first office, equipped with nothing more than a slow internet connection and a determination that burned stronger than my family's doubt. I created business cards using free online templates and started walking into local shops offering to manage their social media presence for incredibly low rates, just to build experience and credibility. My first 3 clients were a family-owned bakery that had been struggling to attract younger customers, a hair salon run by a woman in her 50s who didn't understand Instagram, and an auto repair shop whose owner thought Facebook was just for posting family photos. I charged each of them only $50 per month, but I poured my heart and soul into their campaigns. Within 2 months, the bakery was selling out of their specialty cupcakes because of Instagram posts that made their treats look irresistible. The hair salon started booking appointments 3 weeks in advance because I had showcased their amazing color transformations on social media. The auto repair shop gained 40 new customers from Facebook advertising that targeted people in our zip code who owned older vehicles. My parents watched my late-night work sessions with barely concealed contempt, treating my business efforts like an elaborate hobby that was distracting me from real responsibilities. Playing around on the computer all night isn't going to pay your student loans, my father would say dismissively when he passed my bedroom and saw me working on client campaigns. You need to focus on getting a real job instead of wasting time with this internet nonsense, my mother would add, shaking her head with frustration. But everything changed during a particularly tense family dinner when I was 19 years old. I'd been quietly building my client base and saving money for months, keeping my growing success largely to myself, because I was tired of their constant criticism and doubt. That night, Tyler was complaining about needing money for new football cleats that cost over $200. My parents immediately started brainstorming ways to afford them, discussing selling household items and picking up extra work shifts. Maybe Mindy can contribute something, Tyler suggested with a smirk. She's always on that computer. She must be making some money by now. My father turned to me with curiosity mixed with skepticism. Are you actually earning anything from that social media thing you're always doing? I hesitated for a moment, then decided to be honest. I've been saving most of what I earn. I have about $4,000 in my account right now. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stared at me with expressions that shifted from surprise to something much more troubling. $4,000, my mother repeated slowly. And you didn't tell us about this money. Why are you hiding your earnings from your family? My father demanded, his voice taking on an accusatory tone that made my stomach twist. Then came the revelation that changed everything. My mother calmly explained that they had been monitoring my bank account regularly because it was still a joint account from when I was a minor. They had watched my balance grow over the past several months and had been discussing what to do about my secret money. We feel like you're being dishonest with us, my mother said with hurt in her voice. This family shares everything, and you're keeping financial information from the people who raised you and supported you. You're living under our roof, eating our food, using our electricity, my father added with growing anger. Any money you earn should be contributing to this household, not hidden away for your own selfish purposes. The argument that followed was devastating. They demanded that I contribute half of my savings to help with household expenses and Tyler's needs. When I protested, explaining that I was saving to move out and become completely independent, they accused me of being ungrateful and selfish. Tyler's future is more important than your little computer hobby, my mother said coldly. He has real potential, and this family needs to prioritize his success. That night, lying awake in my childhood bed, I realized with crystal clarity that I needed to escape completely. My family didn't see me as an individual with dreams and potential. They saw me as a resource to be exploited for Tyler's benefit and their financial convenience. The next morning, I started planning my complete independence with the same determination that had built my business from nothing. The months that followed that devastating dinner conversation became the most intense and focused period of my life. I worked 18-hour days taking on every client I could find while secretly preparing for my complete escape from my family's toxic expectations and financial control. I rented a tiny studio apartment on the other side of town, signing the lease without telling my parents and using a different address for all my business correspondence. The apartment was barely 400 square feet with a kitchenette that consisted of a mini refrigerator and a hot plate, but it represented freedom in a way that our family house never could. While maintaining the appearance of compliance at home, I was systematically building an empire that would allow me to disappear from their lives entirely. My client base expanded from 3 local businesses to 12, and I had developed innovative local SEO strategies that were producing remarkable results for every company I worked with. The bakery owner, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled me aside one afternoon to thank me for tripling her weekend sales through targeted Instagram campaigns. "I don't know what you did," she said with tears of gratitude in her eyes, "but we've never had customers lined up outside our door like this before." The hair salon owner, Linda, was booking appointments so far in advance that she had to hire an additional stylist to handle the demand. "Your social media magic has completely transformed my business," she told me while pressing an extra $100 bonus into my hands. But my biggest breakthrough came when I was offered the opportunity to work with something much larger than the small local businesses I had been serving. A regional restaurant chain called Mountain View Family Dining, which operated 8 locations across 3 counties, was looking for someone to completely overhaul their digital presence. The owner, Robert Chen, had heard about my work through word-of-mouth recommendations and wanted to meet with me about a comprehensive digital marketing contract. This wasn't going to be a $50 per month arrangement. We were talking about an annual contract worth $50,000, which would completely change the trajectory of my business and my life. I spent 3 weeks preparing the most comprehensive digital marketing proposal I had ever created. I researched their target demographics, analyzed their competitors, developed sample social media campaigns, and created a detailed strategy for search engine optimization, online advertising, and customer retention programs. The presentation included mock-ups of their new website design examples of social media content that would showcase their family-friendly atmosphere and a detailed plan for email marketing campaigns that would bring customers back regularly. I worked until 3 a.m. every night for 2 weeks, perfecting every slide and anticipating every question they might ask. I had scheduled the presentation for a Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, and I planned to arrive an hour early to set up my equipment and review my notes one final time. This was the most important business meeting of my life, and everything had to be perfect. Monday night, I stayed up until 11:30 making final adjustments to my presentation slides and practicing my talking points one last time. I set 3 different alarms to ensure I would wake up with plenty of time to review everything once more before heading to their corporate office. But when I opened my laptop Tuesday morning at 7 o'clock, my blood turned to ice water in my veins. Every file was gone. The presentation I had spent weeks creating had been completely deleted, and when I checked my backup folder, those files had been corrupted beyond recovery. My hands were shaking as I searched through every folder on my computer, hoping to find some trace of the work that represented my future. There was nothing. Weeks of research design work and strategic planning had vanished into digital oblivion. Then I heard Tyler's voice from downstairs talking on the phone with one of his friends. His words made my stomach drop through the floor. "Yeah, I got into her computer last night and deleted all her presentation stuff," he was saying with obvious satisfaction in his voice. "She thinks she's so much smarter than everyone else, but she's not as clever as she pretends to be." I crept to the top of the stairs and listened as he continued bragging about sabotaging my work. "She's been acting like she's better than this family ever since she started making money with her little internet business," Tyler continued. "Mom and Dad work their butts off every day, and she thinks she can just ignore us and focus on her own selfish goals. Maybe now she'll remember that she's not special." The rage that filled my chest was unlike anything I had ever experienced. My own brother had deliberately destroyed weeks of work because he couldn't stand watching me succeed. He had sabotaged the biggest opportunity of my career out of pure jealousy and spite. I had exactly 6 hours until my presentation was scheduled to begin. 6 hours to recreate everything from memory, to rebuild what Tyler had maliciously destroyed, and to save the business opportunity that could change everything for me. I called the Mountain View corporate office and explained that I was experiencing technical difficulties with my presentation equipment. I asked if we could delay the meeting until 4 o'clock that afternoon, giving myself additional time to prepare. Thankfully, they were understanding and agreed to the schedule change. Then I locked myself in my room and worked with an intensity I didn't know I possessed. I recreated every slide from memory, redeveloped every marketing strategy, and rebuilt the entire presentation using nothing but my recollection of the work Tyler had destroyed. By 3:15, I had assembled a presentation that was even better than the original. The time pressure had forced me to focus on only the most essential and impactful elements, creating a streamlined proposal that was more powerful than the version Tyler had deleted. I arrived at the Mountain View corporate office at 3:45, set up my equipment, and delivered the presentation of my lifetime. Robert Chen and his management team were impressed by my strategic thinking, my understanding of their target market, and my innovative approach to digital marketing. "This is exactly what we've been looking for," Robert said as he shook my hand after the presentation. "We want to move forward with your proposal immediately." I had won the contract that would transform my business, but the victory felt hollow because of what I had learned about my own family. Tyler had actively worked to destroy my success because he couldn't tolerate my achievements. My parents' constant criticism and doubt suddenly seemed like part of a coordinated effort to keep me from surpassing their expectations. Driving home that evening, I realized with painful clarity that my family wasn't just unsupportive of my dreams. They were actively hoping I would fail, and they were willing to sabotage my work to ensure that failure happened. The money I earned from the Mountain View contract would give me the financial freedom to move out permanently and build a life completely independent from their toxicity. But the emotional cost of that independence was the devastating knowledge that the people who should have been celebrating my success were instead plotting its destruction. On my 20th birthday, I moved into my studio apartment permanently and told my parents that I was officially independent and would no longer be living under their roof. The conversation did not go as smoothly as I had hoped, but I was determined to start this new chapter of my life on my own terms. My business had expanded rapidly over the past 6 months. The Mountain View contract had provided steady income and served as an impressive reference for attracting additional clients. I was now managing digital marketing campaigns for 15 different businesses, ranging from small local shops to larger regional companies. I had also hired my first employee, a college student named Jason, who helped me manage social media posting schedules and respond to customer inquiries. Having someone else handle the routine tasks allowed me to focus on strategy development and client acquisition, which accelerated our growth even further. My signature service had evolved into something I called complete digital transformation packages. I would take businesses that had little to no online presence and completely overhaul their digital strategy, including website design, social media management, search engine, optimization, online advertising campaigns, and customer retention programs. The results were consistently impressive. My clients were seeing an average 30% increase in revenue within 6 months of implementing my strategies. Word was spreading throughout the business community about the young woman who could dramatically improve a company's profitability through smart digital marketing. I was saving money aggressively, living on ramen noodles and shopping exclusively at thrift stores so that every possible dollar could go toward building my emergency fund and saving for a house down payment. My goal was to accumulate enough money to purchase a home with cash, avoiding mortgage payments, and demonstrating to myself and everyone else that I had achieved true financial independence. By the time I moved into my apartment, I had managed to save $35,000 despite Tyler's sabotage and my parents' attempts to claim portions of my earnings. It felt like a fortune to someone who had grown up watching her parents stress about every household expense. Initially, my parents seemed to accept my decision to live independently. My mother, Patricia, even brought food to my apartment, occasionally homemade casseroles and cookies that reminded me of the caring side of her personality that I had almost forgotten existed. "I'm proud of how hard you're working," she told me during one of these visits, sitting on my secondhand couch and looking around my tiny space with what appeared to be genuine admiration. "Your business is really taking off and you're proving that you can take care of yourself." My father, Gerald, stopped by one afternoon to help me fix a leaky faucet, something he had never done when I was living at home and asking for help with household repairs. "You're doing good for yourself, Mindy," he said as he tightened the faucet connections. "I might not understand all this computer marketing stuff, but I can see that you're making real money and building something solid." Even Tyler seemed to have moved past his jealousy and sabotage. He called me one evening to ask for advice about social media strategies for promoting his high school football highlights to college recruiters. "I know I messed up before," he said with what sounded like genuine remorse. "I was being stupid and jealous. Can you help me create some posts that will get coaches to notice me?" For a few months, I actually believed that our family relationships were healing. I thought that proving my independence and success had finally earned their respect and support. I was naive enough to hope that we could build healthier dynamics now that I was no longer living under their roof and competing for their attention. But everything changed on a cold February morning when I checked my bank account and discovered that my savings had been completely wiped out. My balance showed $412. $34,600 had vanished overnight, leaving me with barely enough money to pay my rent and utilities for the month. I called the bank immediately convinced that some kind of technical error or identity theft had occurred. But when I spoke with the account manager, I learned the devastating truth about what had really happened to my money. The withdrawal was made yesterday using proper account authorization, the bank representative explained. The account holders listed on your savings account include Gerald Martinez and Patricia Martinez, who have full access to all funds. I'd forgotten that my savings account was still linked to the joint account structure that had been set up when I was a minor. Even though I was now 20 years old and living independently, my parents retained legal access to any money I deposited into that account. I drove to my parents' house immediately, my hands shaking with rage and betrayal as I knocked on the front door. When my mother answered, I could see the guilt written across her face before I even spoke. "Where is my money?" I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fury burning in my chest. "Come inside," my father called from the living room. "We need to have a family conversation about this situation." What followed was the most devastating conversation of my life. My parents calmly explained that they had taken my savings as reimbursement for 18 years of room board clothing, food, medical expenses, and education costs. "You act like we owe you something," my father said with cold justification in his voice. "But you seem to forget that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars raising you, feeding you, and supporting you until you were old enough to take care of yourself. This money belongs to the family," my mother added with self-righteous conviction. "You were being selfish by hoarding it while Tyler has legitimate expenses for his football training and college preparation." Tyler was sitting in the corner of the room with a satisfied smirk on his face, clearly enjoying watching my dreams crumble in real time. "Maybe now you'll stop acting like you're so much better than the rest of us," he said with obvious pleasure. "You're not special, Mindy. You're just part of this family like everyone else, and family money should benefit everyone, not just you." The legal reality was devastating but undeniable. Because the account had been established when I was a minor, my parents had retained full access rights even after I turned 18. The bank confirmed that they had acted within their legal authority by withdrawing the money. I had lost everything I had worked to build over the past 2 years. Worse than the financial devastation was the emotional destruction of realizing that my family had been planning this theft for months, waiting for my savings to reach a substantial amount before striking. That night, sitting alone in my studio apartment with just over $400 to my name, I faced a choice that would define the rest of my life. I could give up, move back home, and accept their control over my finances and my future. Or I could channel this betrayal into the motivation to rebuild bigger and stronger than before, making sure that they could never hurt me like this again. I chose to fight back, and this time I would be smart enough to protect myself from their sabotage and manipulation. The rage and betrayal I felt after my parents stole my life savings became the fuel for the most intense work period of my life. Instead of letting their theft destroy my spirit, I channeled every ounce of anger into building something they could never touch or take away from me. I started working 20-hour days, taking on every client opportunity I could find, while simultaneously developing new revenue streams that didn't depend on local customers who might be influenced by my family's manipulation. My first strategic decision was to expand my client base into 3 neighboring cities, reducing my dependence on businesses in my hometown, where my parents could potentially spread rumors or interference. I drove to Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia, attending networking events and small business meetups where I could pitch my digital marketing services to entrepreneurs who had never heard of my family. The second major development was an idea that came to me during one of my late-night work sessions. Many of the business owners I worked with had similar questions about digital marketing strategies, and they were all struggling with the same basic challenges. Instead of repeating the same explanations and training with each individual client, I decided to create an online course that would teach small business owners how to implement effective digital marketing campaigns themselves. I spent 6 weeks developing a comprehensive course called Digital Marketing Mastery for Small Business Owners. The course included 12 modules covering website optimization, social media strategy, email marketing, online advertising, customer retention, and measuring return on investment. I priced the course at $97 and promoted it through my existing client network and social media channels. To my amazement, the course became an unexpected hit. Within the first month, I had sold over 200 copies, generating nearly $20,000 in passive income. The success of the online course proved that I could create revenue streams that weren't dependent on local clients or geographic limitations. I could reach customers anywhere in the country, building a business that was completely insulated from my family's ability to interfere or sabotage. As demand for the course grew, I hired 2 additional employees to help manage the expanding workload. Sarah was a marketing specialist who had recently graduated from Penn State with a degree in communications. Marcus was a web developer who could create the sophisticated online platforms my business needed to serve clients efficiently. With a team of 3 employees and multiple revenue streams, my business was generating more income than I had ever imagined possible. Within 18 months of my parents' theft, I had not only rebuilt my savings, but had created a company that was more successful and stable than anything I had achieved before their sabotage. I started looking at houses in neighborhoods far enough from my parents that I wouldn't have to worry about unexpected visits or confrontations. My goal was to find a modest home that I could purchase entirely with cash, avoiding mortgage payments and demonstrating my complete financial independence. The house I found was a beautiful 2-story colonial in a quiet neighborhood about 40 minutes from my hometown. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a modern kitchen, and a spacious home office where I could run my business. The asking price was $160,000, which I could afford to pay in full. But just as I was preparing to make an offer on the house, my family launched their most devastating attack yet. It started with whispered conversations in our small town. My mother, Patricia, began telling people at church that my business was some kind of scam and that I had stolen money from my family to fund my lifestyle. I hate to say this about my own daughter. She would tell her church friends with fake sadness in her voice, but Mindy has become dishonest and greedy since she moved out. Her business isn't legitimate, and she took money that belonged to the family. My father, Gerald, started spreading similar rumors at the construction sites where he worked. He told his co-workers that I was running some kind of internet scheme that was taking advantage of honest business owners. "She's got these small business people convinced that she can help them," he would say during lunch breaks. "But it's all smoke and mirrors. She doesn't know anything about real business. She's just good at talking and making people believe her lies." Tyler took the campaign to social media, posting long, emotional messages about how I had abandoned my family and broken my parents' hearts by choosing money over family loyalty. "My sister used to be a good person," he wrote in a Facebook post that was shared dozens of times throughout our community. "But success changed her into someone selfish and cold. She cares more about her bank account than the people who raised her and loved her." The impact on my business was immediate and devastating. 3 of my local clients canceled their contracts within 2 weeks, citing concerns about my business practices and personal character. 2 potential clients who had been ready to sign contracts suddenly stopped returning my phone calls. I watched helplessly as my family systematically destroyed the reputation I had spent years building. They were using the small-town gossip network like a weapon, spreading lies and half-truths that made it impossible for me to defend myself without looking petty or vindictive. The emotional toll was almost unbearable. I had lost my family's love and support, I had survived their financial theft, and now they were trying to destroy the business that represented my independence and security. I spent an entire weekend locked in my apartment crying and questioning whether success was worth losing everyone I had once considered family. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was selfish and ungrateful. Maybe I should give up on my dreams and try to repair our relationships. But on Monday morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and made a decision that would change everything. I was not going to let their cruelty and jealousy destroy what I had built through honest work and determination. I was going to fight back with the same intelligence and strategy that had made my business successful. If they wanted to play dirty, they were about to learn that they had trained me well. The decision to fight back strategically rather than emotionally marked the beginning of my transformation from victim to warrior. Instead of responding to their attacks with angry confrontations or desperate attempts to defend myself, I began documenting everything with the methodical precision of someone building a legal case. I created detailed files containing screenshots of every social media post Tyler made about me, recordings of voicemails from family members, and written summaries of every rumor I heard about myself through mutual acquaintances. I documented dates, times, witnesses, and specific language used in their campaign against my reputation in business. My next step was consulting with an attorney who specialized in harassment and defamation cases. Jennifer Walsh was a sharp, no-nonsense lawyer who had built her career defending small business owners against unfair attacks. When I explained my situation, her expression shifted from polite interest to focused anger. What your family is doing constitutes a clear pattern of harassment and intentional interference with your business, she told me after reviewing my documentation. You have grounds for restraining orders and potential civil lawsuits for damages. But legal action would take time, and I couldn't afford to let their attacks continue destroying my business while waiting for court proceedings. I needed to pivot my strategy immediately to protect my income and continue building toward my financial goals. The solution was to focus entirely on clients outside my local area who would never encounter my family's rumors. I stopped pursuing any business within a 50-mile radius of my hometown and instead concentrated on building relationships with companies in major metropolitan areas where my expertise could command higher prices. My online course sales continued to explode as I refined the marketing strategy and added advanced modules for business owners who wanted more sophisticated training. The course was featured in Entrepreneur magazine as one of the top digital marketing resources for small businesses, which brought national attention and credibility that no small-town gossip could undermine. I built my team to 6 employees, all working remotely from different locations around the country. This distributed model meant that my business operations were completely independent from any geographic location, making it impossible for my family to interfere with my work or my employees. By the time I turned 23, my business was generating over $400,000 in annual revenue. I had achieved a level of success that exceeded anything I had imagined when I started managing social media accounts from my childhood bedroom. The house I had been planning to buy was still available, and I was finally ready to make an offer. Purchasing a beautiful home with cash at 23 years old would be the ultimate proof that I had succeeded despite my family's sabotage and theft. But my parents weren't finished with their campaign to destroy me. The escalation began with a phone call from the local police department. Officer Martinez explained that my parents had filed a report claiming I had embezzled money from them and that I was operating a fraudulent business. They're alleging that you took money that belonged to them and used it to fund illegal business activities, the officer explained. I need to ask you some questions about your business operations and your financial relationship with your family. I provided the officer with complete documentation of my business income tax returns and bank records proving that every dollar I had earned came from legitimate client payments and course sales. The police investigation concluded within 3 days that the allegations were completely false. But while the investigation was ongoing, my parents contacted every one of my clients with detailed emails claiming that I was under criminal investigation for financial fraud. Gerald called my business phone number repeatedly, leaving threatening voicemails that I was forced to record for evidence. Patricia showed up at my apartment building and harassed my landlord, claiming that I was using the property for illegal business activities and that he should evict me immediately. She left flyers on cars in the parking lot warning neighbors about the criminal living in their building. Tyler created fake social media accounts and used them to leave negative reviews on my business profiles, claiming that I had stolen money from clients and provided worthless services. He contacted my suppliers and business partners with stories about my supposed criminal behavior. 2 of my major clients terminated their contracts while the police investigation was pending, citing concerns about potential legal complications. The false accusations cost me over $30,000 in lost revenue, even though the investigation quickly proved my innocence. I realized that my family would continue escalating their attacks until they had completely destroyed everything I had built. They weren't going to stop until they had driven me out of business, out of my apartment, and hopefully back under their control, where they could continue stealing from me. That realization led to the most important decision of my adult life. I was going to stop playing defense and start playing offense. They had declared war on my success and my independence, and I was going to make sure that they lost that war decisively. I called Jennifer Walsh and told her I was ready to pursue every legal option available to me. I want restraining orders against all 3 of them, I told her. I want to sue them for defamation, harassment, and intentional interference with my business, and I want to make sure that they can never hurt me like this again. That's going to be an expensive and time-consuming process, she warned me. Are you prepared for a long legal battle? I thought about the 18-year-old girl who had started a business from her bedroom with nothing but determination and an outdated laptop. I thought about surviving their theft of my savings and rebuilding even stronger than before. I thought about the house I was going to buy with cash and the business I had built through honest work and intelligence. I'm absolutely prepared, I told her. It's time for them to face the consequences of what they've done. But even as I was preparing my legal counterattack, my parents were planning their most devastating assault yet. Jennifer Walsh moved quickly and efficiently to build our legal strategy. Within 2 weeks, she had filed restraining orders against all 3 family members, citing the documented pattern of harassment, false police reports, and systematic interference with my business operations. The evidence package she assembled was devastating. We had recorded phone calls of my father making threats, screenshots of Tyler's fake social media accounts, witness statements from my landlord about my mother's harassment, and detailed financial records proving that their theft of my savings was the only illegal activity that had occurred. The restraining orders were granted immediately by the judge, who expressed obvious disgust at the evidence of their coordinated campaign against me. This is one of the most egregious cases of family harassment I've seen, Judge Patricia Williams stated during the hearing. The systematic nature of this abuse is particularly disturbing, given that it appears to be motivated by jealousy of the petitioner's legitimate business success. While the restraining orders provided legal protection, I decided to take my fight public in a way that would protect other young entrepreneurs from similar family sabotage. I wrote a detailed social media post explaining my story from starting a business at 18 to surviving family theft and harassment. I included enough specific details to make the story compelling and relatable, while focusing on the lessons other people could learn from my experience. The response was overwhelming. Within 24 hours, my post had been shared over 10,000 times. Hundreds of people commented with their own stories of family members who had tried to sabotage their success or steal their earnings. Business publications reached out for interviews, and I found myself featured in articles about young entrepreneurs who had overcome family obstacles. The publicity brought my business national attention and actually resulted in 5 new major client contracts from companies impressed by my resilience and expertise. I purchased my house during this period, paying $160,000 in cash for the beautiful colonial that represented everything I had worked to achieve. I celebrated with my loyal employees, the people who had become my chosen family through shared work and mutual respect. The local newspaper wrote a feature story about my success, highlighting how a young woman from their community had built a thriving business despite facing significant personal obstacles. The article presented me as an inspiration for other young entrepreneurs, which further enhanced my professional reputation. For a few months, I actually believed that the worst was behind me. The restraining orders had stopped their direct harassment, my business was thriving from the national attention, and I had achieved my dream of homeownership through my own hard work and intelligence. I should have known that my parents wouldn't accept defeat so easily. The lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday morning in late October. I was sitting in my beautiful home office reviewing quarterly financial reports and feeling proud of how far I had come when a process server knocked on my front door. The legal documents he handed me were thick and official, filed through a law firm I had never heard of in a neighboring county. As I read through the allegations, my blood turned to ice water in my veins. My parents were suing me for theft of inheritance that rightfully belonged to Tyler. They claimed that my business success had come from family connections and resources that they had provided, and they were demanding 50% of my assets, my house, and all future business earnings. The lawsuit alleged that I had stolen opportunities and advantages that were meant to benefit Tyler's future, and that my parents deserved compensation for the investment they had made in my education and development. According to their legal filing, I had used family resources to build my business and then cut them out of the profits through selfish and ungrateful behavior. They argued that Tyler, as the family member with the most potential for success, had been damaged by my appropriation of resources that should have supported his athletic and academic career. The demand for 50% of everything I owned was presented as a reasonable attempt to restore fairness to the family dynamic. They wanted half of my business equity, half of my house value, and half of all income I would earn in the future. Tyler had provided a sworn statement claiming that my success had come at the expense of his opportunities, and that he deserved compensation for the emotional damage of watching his sister steal the life he was meant to have. I called Jennifer Walsh immediately, my hands shaking as I read portions of the lawsuit over the phone. "This is clearly a retaliatory lawsuit," she told me after I had summarized the major allegations. "But we're going to have to take it seriously because they've hired competent attorneys and structured their claims carefully." She explained that the case could drag on for years and cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Even if we ultimately won, the process would be emotionally and financially devastating. "They're hoping to force you into a settlement by making the cost of fighting higher than the cost of giving them money," she continued. "It's a common tactic in harassment cases, and it's often effective because people can't afford to fight." That evening, I sat in my home office and stared out the window at the neighborhood I had worked so hard to afford. My parents seemed confident and smug, as if they had some secret advantage that would guarantee their victory. I realized that this lawsuit was their final desperate attempt to take everything from me. If they couldn't destroy my business through rumors and harassment, they would try to steal my assets through legal manipulation and emotional warfare. But they had made one critical mistake. They had chosen to fight someone who had already survived their worst attacks and had learned to document everything meticulously. I had been preparing for this battle longer than they realized, and I was about to show them exactly what their years of cruelty had taught me about winning wars. The courthouse was packed with spectators when our case finally went to trial 6 months later. Word had spread throughout our small town about the family lawsuit, and people were curious to see how the dramatic conflict would be resolved. My parents entered the courtroom with their attorney, a smooth-talking man in an expensive suit who specialized in family inheritance disputes. They looked confident and self-righteous, as if they genuinely believed that justice was on their side. Tyler sat behind them dressed in his best clothes and prepared to testify about how my success had damaged his prospects and stolen his rightful future. Their attorney began with an emotional opening statement about family unity and shared responsibility. He painted a picture of ungrateful daughter who had abandoned her loving family in pursuit of selfish financial gain. The Martinez family invested everything they had in their children's future. he told the jury with practiced sincerity. They sacrificed their own comfort and security to provide educational opportunities and support for both children. Now, when they should be enjoying the rewards of that investment, one child has cut them out completely, while keeping all the benefits for herself. Tyler took the witness stand and delivered a tearful testimony about feeling abandoned and cheated by my success. He claimed that my business opportunities had come from family connections and resources that he had been denied. My parents always supported both of us equally, he said with convincing emotion in his voice. But when Mindy started making money, she became selfish and mean. She acted like she had done everything herself, but our family helped make her success possible. My mother, Patricia, testified about the financial sacrifices they had made to support my education and early business efforts. She presented herself as a heartbroken mother who had been rejected and abandoned by an ungrateful daughter. "I just want my family back together," she said while dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Money isn't worth losing a daughter, but Mindy has chosen her business over her family." For the first 2 days of the trial, I watched my family perform their victim act with Oscar-worthy skill. Their attorney was building a compelling narrative about family loyalty and shared responsibility that might have been convincing to a jury that didn't know the full story. But Jennifer Walsh had been preparing for this moment for months, and she had assembled an evidence package that would destroy their credibility completely. On the third day of the trial, she began our defense by presenting the audio recordings of my father making threats and my mother admitting that they had spread false rumors about my business. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Jennifer said as she played the recordings through the courtroom speakers, "you're about to hear the plaintiffs in their own words admitting to the systematic harassment and sabotage that forms the real foundation of this case." The recordings were devastating. Gerald's voice filled the courtroom as he threatened to destroy my business and promised to make me regret ever crossing my family. Patricia could be heard laughing as she described spreading rumors at church about my supposed dishonesty. Next came the bank records proving that my parents had stolen $34,600 from my savings account while I was living independently and supporting myself. The financial documents showed that every dollar they had taken came from my business earnings, not from any family investment or inheritance. Jennifer presented screenshots of Tyler's social media posts where he bragged about deleting my presentation files and creating fake accounts to damage my business reputation. His own words proved that he had actively sabotaged my work out of jealousy and spite. The false police report was entered into evidence along with documentation showing that they had contacted my clients with lies about criminal investigations. Email records proved that they had systematically attempted to destroy my business relationships through calculated deception. Multiple witnesses testified about the harassment campaign, including my landlord, former clients who had been contacted by my parents, and business associates who had received false information about my character. But the most powerful evidence came from my business records themselves. Jennifer presented detailed financial documentation showing that I had built my company through legitimate client relationships, innovative marketing strategies, and hard work. Every dollar of income could be traced to specific business activities that had nothing to do with family support or resources. When it was time for cross-examination, Jennifer exposed the contradictions in my family's testimony with surgical precision. "Mr. Martinez," she said to my father, "you testified that you supported your daughter's business efforts. But this recording from last month has you saying, and I quote, 'I hope her little internet scam falls apart and she comes crawling back home.' Can you explain that contradiction?" Gerald stumbled through a weak explanation that only made him look more dishonest and vindictive. "Mrs. Martinez," Jennifer continued with my mother, "you claim you want to rebuild your relationship with your daughter, but you also filed a false police report accusing her of embezzlement just 3 months ago. Which statement represents your true feelings?" Patricia's attempt to justify the false police report made her appear manipulative and cruel rather than heartbroken. When Tyler took the stand for cross-examination, Jennifer destroyed his credibility by presenting evidence of his deliberate sabotage alongside his testimony about family unity. Tyler, you've testified that you love your sister and want the family to be together again. But you also created fake social media accounts to leave negative reviews of her business. Can you explain how damaging someone's livelihood demonstrates love and family loyalty? By the end of the fourth day, it was clear that my family's case had collapsed under the weight of their own contradictory statements and documented lies. Judge Williams delivered her ruling on Friday morning with obvious disgust for the plaintiff's behavior. This court finds that the lawsuit filed by Gerald and Patricia Martinez against their daughter, Mindy Martinez, is without merit and appears to be motivated entirely by spite and financial opportunism. She stated firmly, "The evidence presented shows a clear pattern of harassment, theft, and attempted sabotage that contradicts every claim made in their complaint." She dismissed the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning it could never be filed again, and awarded me attorney fees and damages totaling $50,000. The restraining orders were made permanent, legally requiring my family to stay away from me, my business, and my employees indefinitely. But the most satisfying moment came when Tyler approached me outside the courthouse after the ruling. "Mindy, I'm sorry," he said with genuine tears in his eyes. "I didn't realize how manipulative Mom and Dad were being. They convinced me that you were trying to hurt the family, but I can see now that they were just jealous of your success." He had finally recognized that our parents had been using him as a weapon against me, manipulating his emotions to serve their own vindictive purposes. "I posted an apology on social media," he continued. "I explained that everything I said before was wrong and that you built your success through honest work. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm sorry it took me this long to realize it." The years that followed brought more success than I had ever imagined possible. My business grew to national prominence, earning recognition from Forbes as one of the top marketing agencies founded by entrepreneurs under 30. I purchased a second property as an investment and established a scholarship fund for young entrepreneurs who were starting businesses without family support. My team expanded to 20 employees, all working remotely and earning excellent salaries while helping small businesses across the country achieve their growth goals. Most importantly, I found peace knowing that I had succeeded not just despite my family's sabotage, but because their attacks had taught me resilience, strategic thinking, and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely wanted to see me thrive. The house I had bought with cash became the foundation for a life filled with genuine relationships, meaningful work, and the satisfaction of knowing that I had built something lasting through my own intelligence and determination. The deepest lesson I learned from this experience is that true family supports your dreams and celebrates your success. People who try to destroy your achievements, steal your earnings, or sabotage your opportunities don't deserve a place in your life regardless of their biological relationship to you. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from toxic people and build a chosen family of individuals who genuinely want to see you succeed and thrive. Success isn't just about financial achievement. It's about creating a life surrounded by people who support your goals, respect your efforts, and celebrate your victories instead of trying to tear you down. As I sit in my beautiful home office today mentoring another young entrepreneur who reminds me of my 18-year-old self, I know that every challenge I faced was worth it for the strength, wisdom, and genuine relationships I gained along the way. Have you ever had family members or close friends try to sabotage your success out of jealousy? How did you handle people who should have been supporting you but were instead working against your dreams? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Please like this video if my story inspired you to keep fighting for your goals, subscribe for more stories about overcoming family obstacles, and share this with anyone who needs encouragement to choose their own success over toxic relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your dreams are worth fighting for no matter who tries to convince you otherwise.